somebody from almost the center of Africa, Mike Davies. Mike Davies lives in Harare, in Zimbabwe. He will speak to us on the human rights situation in Africa and what are the steps that we can take. Mike is the coordinator for Anglophone Africa for the International Alliance of Inhabitants. He has been a grassroots activist for the protection of human rights most of his life. From what he has narrated to me personally, what I have read of him, he is currently involved in developing a Pan-African network of inhabitants that will link and support local struggles for dignity and security, especially for the marginalized urban citizens throughout Africa. Welcome, Mike, to this conference. Over to you, Mike.
Great, thanks, brother. I appreciate this opportunity very much indeed. Good morning, everybody. Well, good afternoon from Zimbabwe. Thank you for this opportunity to participate in this meeting and to address your community. I have been tasked with providing a perspective of the current situation in Africa regarding human rights. This is an impossible task, of course, and one can merely touch upon the issues that are affecting us. I will try and paint broad strokes, which will give you a taste of the situation and the various threats that are affecting us here in Africa. You will find, of course, that many of our struggles are the same. As the brother said earlier, we are struggling for dignity and respect, no matter where we are in the world. And it is a task of all activists, be they of faith or otherwise, to seek out an alternative world based on justice and respect for everybody. As Brother Vargas said, I'm a local democratic activist in Harare, Zimbabwe, and I work mainly at the neighborhood level, developing community responses to the many threats that affect us here in my city. But apart from this local work, which I believe is the basis of a democratic country, building from the bottom up is critical. You cannot build from the top down. So I, through my work at the local level, gradually endorsed international solidarity. And for the past 10 years, I have been working with the International Alliance of Inhabitants as a coordinator for Anglophone Africa, trying to develop links between struggles, activists, and communities across our country. The Alliance is a global network of social organizations. Its objective is to give voice and international impact to people who have been evicted, who are facing evictions, who are in situations of poor shelter and bad housing, and to those that are homeless. We seek to bring people together to talk about their own stories. We do not appropriate their voices and speak on their behalf, as so many of our NGO colleagues seem to do, but we provide a platform for the actual voices of the oppressed and marginalized. We've been going for about 17 years now, and we've run a number of programs which I'll touch later on in this presentation. But to get back to the topic in hand, I'm afraid the human rights environment in Africa is extremely poor. Even before COVID-19, we had only a handful of countries out of 54, only 6 can be regarded as free in a general sense. 6 out of 54 countries. And even in those 6 countries, people still face arrest and oppression. Journalists get detained, activists get arrested. So really, I would say to call even those 6 countries free is highly contentious at the current stage. There's widespread political repression. Just this last week, opposition leaders have been arrested in Uganda and Tanzania. In Uganda, Bobi Wine was arrested merely for registering. So we have these arrests even in supposedly democratic countries like Tanzania, and this means our political systems are very fragile. We are, as are many countries in Asia, subject to the whole charismatic big man idea, where there is a leader who will take us out of our situation and take us somewhere else. But these big men invariably turn out to be frauds, to be dictators, and merely pursuing their own personal interests and the interests of their political class at the expense of our people. Of course, as people know, in Africa, we face a lot of military conflict. There are military struggles going on right across a broad swathe from Somalia to Mauritania, Mali. These armed conflicts also are a reflection of the weakness of our state institutions, which cannot provide the security in which people can pursue their faith, their livelihoods, and their lives. Human rights in a military zone are pretty much non-existent, and we have to end the military conflicts before we can start to develop a culture of human rights in those countries. Africa is probably one of the more militarized continents in the world now. There are 7 countries with military bases in just Djibouti. One small little port in the Red Sea has 7 nations building military bases. The United States of America has 29 bases in Africa. These are not there for the benefit of our people. They are there to preserve the interests of Western elites in collaboration with the local elites that divert resources that should go into building better lives for our people, that go into military hardware, gleefully sold to them by Western powers to use against other African brothers. We see the conflict developing in Tigray at the moment in Ethiopia. Both sides are armed by the same people. I'm lost for words at the contempt in which our people are held in this situation. These military conflicts and the instability they have created are the root cause of the waves of migrants who seek a better life elsewhere. I do not have space or time to go into the human rights abuses that have been visited upon our brothers and sisters trying to flee to a safer life, not necessarily a better economic life, but at least a safer life outside of Africa. The key crisis in Africa is the failure of states to defend their people against armed aggression, whether it is by the state or by armed groups, extra state actors who reject the states. So this must be the work of civil activists, the churches and others to try and mitigate against this wave of violence in our continent. Of course, the military violence is mirrored by civil conflicts that are taking place, not necessarily militaristic in nature, but people rising up in protest, people who have had enough in Sudan, Malawi, Guinea, Mali, my country, Zimbabwe. People have risen up in the last few years to protest against dictators, to protest against the abuse of their human rights. The popular uprising in Sudan took us all by surprise. So while I'm painting a gloomy picture, there are rays of hope. There are struggles simmering underneath, away from public media, in all our countries. There are groups of brave men and women who are seeking to address these crises. And the whole purpose of my presentation today is to build international solidarity. I strongly urge our brothers and sisters in India and Asia to reach out to community groups and organizations in Africa. You have a lot to teach us. Your struggles for democracy have been going on for well over a century and a half, and we can teach you as well. We have many lessons to bring to an exchange about our common humanity. However, to return to the story of gloom, we have media problems in Africa. Just this week, the government of Ethiopia, whose prime minister won a Nobel Peace Prize last year, has cut off internet and telephone communications to the Tigray province. Countries do this all the time in Africa. Tanzania cut its internet briefly during the elections, and my country too. If there's the slightest hint of any social coordination of opposition, then goes the internet. So media is a problem both for our communications to each other, but also what we can read. Just last week, a brave reporter here in Zimbabwe was arrested for criticizing a judge's decision about a corruption case. He's already spent 50 days in jail for exposing government corruption. Right across the continent, journalists face imprisonment and a lack of freedom in which to report upon our situation. So we are blocked from understanding what's going on, not only in our own countries, but next door. Most Zimbabweans do not know what's happening in Mozambique, for instance. And it is my vision that we break down these silos that we locked into, and we can act in solidarity with struggling communities in the north of Mozambique or elsewhere. This, I think, is one of the biggest contributions the church can make, because you already have social networks that link and support people in their struggles. You can be the engine that promotes an internationalist solidarity. I will post a brief report, if anyone is interested, on different aspects of human rights in Africa. You know, there are issues around health care and others which have been hugely impacted by COVID. But I'd like to talk briefly about a matter dear to my heart, which is evictions of our people right across Africa. Not only those people displaced by war and internal conflict, but those who are ejected from their ancestral lands to build a sugarcane plantation. Those that have, in my country, are being evicted to grow lucerne for a dairy corporation. These are the struggles our people are facing because they do not have security of tenure in their land, even though they've been living there for, in some cases, hundreds of years. The plunder and pillage by corporate interests acting in conjunction with our local elites is rampant in Africa. At the moment, I think we've had more than 40,000 people forcefully evicted just in the last 6 months in Kenya, Ethiopia, and Somalia. And these are things where the church can get actively involved to help those communities to understand their options, to intercede with the local authorities and national governments for moratorium on evictions, and then to facilitate dialogue between the opposing groups to seek an equitable and justiciable solution that puts people at the center of our activities, not corporate interests or overseas development projects. On the matter of international solidarity, which I'd like to close upon, it's important to develop international solidarity with and between communities facing threats to their rights. Peer-to-peer exchanges, in my experience, are the most rewarding events. To see people's eyes light up when they talk about their struggles and they get empathy, they get solidarity from other people facing the same struggles. This is one of the most rewarding emotions that an organizer can get. When you see those sparks flying and the discussion of what people have done, what they can do, what they can't do. That brew is a very heady mixture. And a lot of our work in the International Alliance of Inhabitants is to create these spaces in which people can exchange their ideas and experiences. We run the World Assemblies of Inhabitants and its regional sessions in Asia, in Africa, and South America. We have had very successful gatherings of people from international networks, right down to people Zooming us from a village in the south of Kenya with the cows and the chickens in the background. It's wonderful. It is a non-hierarchical space in which people can dialogue. We also run the International Tribunal on Evictions. This is an annual or biannual event where communities facing evictions can submit cases to an international panel of jurists. We select, well, in pre-COVID times, we would bring representatives of the communities to a space to present those cases. Our panel of jurists, who include lawyers and activists, would then make recommendations based on the evidence that the communities may then use as a tool for negotiation with their governments or with those that seek to dispossess them. That international solidarity should never be underestimated. I know many of us, and I suspect it's a problem in India too, live within our own national bubbles. We are Indian, we are Zimbabwean, we are Brazilian. These are just arbitrary boxes that keep us from reaching our common humanity. And we must struggle in all our work to project an internationalist approach. We are not different. Our struggles are the same. We want shelter, we want food, we want health. We have the physical needs that we need to live a good life. And then we have the rights, not only human rights, but economic, social, and cultural rights that need to be respected. COVID-19 has forced us all to adjust. I don't know, but I seem to spend endless days on Zoom. But this is really an opportunity. I miss the local contact of being able to hug my brothers and sisters in the struggle, but I would never get to speak to such a wide grouping as yours that is here today, and to present just one perspective on current situation in Africa. As I say, I have prepared a small document with links to various human rights reports and local contacts in countries in Africa. I would urge all of you to reach out, to investigate, and start to forge linkages with local groups in Africa. You know, I suppose like the Twin City program that our urban authorities develop, we should have twin organizations that we nurture, mentor, learn from, act in solidarity. Once again, I would like to thank Brother Varghese and the whole group of organizers that have contributed to these 3 days. Unfortunately, work demands that I leave you all soon, but I will catch up with the video recordings of the meeting. And once again, thank you all.
Thank you very much, Mike. It has been a pleasure listening to you. Africa, the 54 countries of Africa. As you said, the human rights situation is extremely challenging. It is only 6 countries out of 54 that are free armed conflicts and failure of institutions that make living in Africa extremely dangerous. And the migrations that take place because of not for economic opportunities, but simply because people want to live, to save themselves, the threat to the media, the evictions that take place, the corporate elites and the local elites that gather together for profit. and how the poor suffer, are evicted from their farmlands and from their homes. And as you said, internationality is the medicine that can heal. And the COVID provides an opportunity for us all across the world to link, to express solidarity, to forge unity and unified action. And I think this is an extremely important insight. Thank you. We will share the link that you have on the situation of human rights in Africa. We shall share it with the participants and others. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike, for being there. Thank you.